Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a school board meeting today. I'd like to start off with calling this meeting to order at 5 p.m. Please start off with a roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Here.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Here.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Here.
Mr. Neil Patel and Ms. Elva Ariano are not present.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first let's start off with the approval of the board agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
I second. Roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, today on closed session, we have two items. Item 2.1 is public employee appointment / employment, government code section 54957. And then we have item 2.2, conference with labor negotiators under government code section 54957.6. Do we have any public comments regarding closed session items?
Not at this time.
Okay, no public comments regarding closed session. Can I get a motion to adjourn the closed session?
Motion to adjourn.
I second. Roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, see everybody afterwards. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to reconvene it back into open session. We have a couple items to report on. The board approved an unpaid leave of absence for 30 days for employee number 159935. The vote was 3-0. And then I have a resolution to read. Before the governing board of the Santa Rita Union School District, Monterey County, California, in the matter of resolution number 22.03.03, temporary or probationary employee. Whereas Education Code Section 44954 authorizes notice to any temporary employee of the board's decision to release the employee for the next succeeding school year if such notice is provided before the end of the school year. Whereas Education Code Section 44929.21 authorizes notice to any probationary employee whose probationary period commenced during or after the 1983 to 1984 fiscal year of the board's decision whether to reflect the employee for the next succeeding school year to such a position at any time or on before March 15th of the employee's second complete consecutive school year of employment by the district. Whereas the board believes that it is in the best interest of the district not to re-elect employee listed in attachment A pursuant to Educational Code Section 44954, 44929.21. Therefore, be resolved that this board hereby directs the superintendent to send notice of release, non-reelection of the employees listed in attachment A, whose services should be terminated by virtue of this action. Nothing herein should be deemed to confer any status of rights upon the employee or employees beyond those special granted by statute. Passed and adopted the 9th day of March 2022 at a meeting of the governing board by the following vote, 3-0. Attachment A, the superintendent recommends the release of non-reelection of the following employees. Employee ID 160558, employee ID 160559, employee ID 160562, employee ID 160613, employee ID 160517, employee ID 160592, employee ID 159929, employee ID 160554, employee ID 160567. And then Sarah's going to help me with.
Before the governing board of the Santa Rita Union School District, Monterey County, California, resolution number 22.03.04, in the matter of the decision to release and reassign certificated administrator. Resolution of release and reassignment, Education Code 44951. Whereas Education Code Section 44951 authorizes the governing board to release and reassign administrators, provided that notice of release and reassignment is provided to the administrator prior to March 15th, and notice of the administrator's actual reassignment is issued by June 30th. Whereas employee number 108970 is a certificated administrator who has been employed in the district during the 2021-2022 school year, and whereas pursuant to Education Code Section 44951, the governing board has received a recommendation from the superintendent or superintendent's designee that a notice of reassignment be given to the certificated administrator, that the administrator will be reassigned from their current position to another position. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Santa Rita Union School District hereby authorizes the district superintendent or the superintendent's designee to notify the administrator of the governing board's decision that he or she will be released from his or her present assignment for the 2021-2022 school year and reassigned to another position for the 2022-2023 school year in accordance with Education Code Section 44951. The district superintendent or the superintendent's designee is further authorized to take any further actions necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution. The foregoing resolution was adopted in a meeting of the governing board of the Santa Rita Union School District held on March 9th, 2022 by the following vote. Ayes 3, noes 0, absent 2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5.1. If I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda items for items 5.2 to 5.5.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Before we begin on 6.1, I just want to see if we can take a moment of silence. Um, in memory of Officer Jorge David Alvarado. He was a police officer who lost his life in the line of duty serving our community. So if we can just have a few moments for him, please. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to 6.1, SRTA.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, hello, my name is Danny Crouch. I am the SRTA secretary for this school year. I hope this evening finds you all well. Just as with our community, our staff and students are approaching Monday's end to the mask mandate in classrooms with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. We are continually grateful for the district's open communication, passing information along as they receive it, just as they did today, letting us know as soon as they got new notifications, they sent it out to us. It's very much appreciated. The removal of masks on the two-year anniversary of when our school or district went to distance learning is to find that things are returning to normal. School has been forever changed by this pandemic, but with the return of field trips, the scheduling of open houses and graduations, we are going back to some semblance of life before COVID, much to our joy. We are now 2/3 of the way through the school year. Both students and staff are tired. Time change this weekend. It's not something we're looking forward to. But on the subject of being 2/3 through the school year, I would like to read you a letter from our SRTA president, Kate Stover, who wishes she could be here tonight. So, dear ladies and gentlemen of the board, I need to let you know, and our families know, some of the elementary school report cards will be sent home on Friday, missing comments, and some may be missing grades. The average teacher spends 6 hours working on report cards each trimester. There is no grading days on our calendar to give our teachers the contract time to complete report cards. We may be told to use our PLC time or have a staff meeting canceled or rescheduled later in the month, but our PLC time is very important to ensure our grade level is working together. Plus, PLC is only an hour, as is a staff meeting, so this might be 2 hours of contract time we are given. The report card window opened February 7th. The trimester ended February 23rd. Teachers like to give their students the whole trimester to earn their grade. Primary does use the early open time to assess one-on-one and enter grades as they go along. As you can imagine, one-on-one assessing 16 to 23 kindergartners can take a long time. The DO created an assessment calendar at the beginning of the school year, which had the closing date of March 4th for entering trimester 2 report card grades and comments. Many of our principals know 10 calendar days, 7 working days, is not enough time to complete report cards. These principals moved the date report cards were due for them for review to the usual day, 2 days before report cards go home. This gives the teachers 2 weekends to work on the report cards. Yes, during their personal time. As you can imagine, many teachers were caught by surprise when they couldn't access the report cards this past weekend. I, Kate Stover, was able to contact Melissa and Becky about this. They opened up the report cards back up until Monday the 7th. Still, teachers did not know this, and when they went to enter their grades or edit comments, they could not. Our teachers are at a loss of what to do. Some are now going to be sending home report cards without comments or missing some grades. There is no harm in having the reporting window open until the report cards go home, especially since we want to inform families of the most recent information about their students' learning. Thank you for hearing our concern. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for speaking. CSEA?
Good evening, everyone.
Just want to go ahead and say that today, CSE and I met with Miss Becky Moore. We had a very productive meeting, and we have upcoming meetings with her in the next couple of weeks, and we're looking forward for that. And that's it for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's cabinet. Start off with Director of MOTF, Mr. Victor Sandoval.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Hey, so this week and last week, we've been kind of focusing with inspections of our Monterey County Fire Marshal. And today we received official reports from them letting us know that we have actually passed with no any restrictions or anything or any write-ups. So I was kind of really happy about that. Also today, we had the Chp inspections for our paperwork, basically the office staff. And we actually did pretty good, knowing that, we haven't done this for 2 years, but we're working with CHP. We have minor discrepancies, but we'll have those fixed up by tomorrow. And I also want to say that we held interviews for one of our maintenance positions. And I'm happy to say that our in-house groundsman applied for it and got it. And his name is Julio Gonzalez. And I wanted to welcome him to this new position. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
How many vacancies do you still have in your department?
I currently have two bus driver, quasi, roving custodians. I have one maintenance, and currently I have a recent full-time custodian and one more that have the position of roving custodian at night, which is held by Isaiah. And so he has been accepted to the police academy. So good for him, and we'll fill his position as soon as we get some applications in.
Well, thank you to the staff for covering all those holes in staffing, and congratulations to him for making the police academy. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Moving on to the Director of Nutritional Services, Mr. Chuck Helm.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just one thing from our department tonight. So as many of you know, the last 2 years, the USDA has issued multiple waivers to help nutrition service departments. And not only have they helped our departments, but they've also helped parents of students worry a little less about how their children will get meals that a lot of them depend on. Well, recently, a spending bill was proposed, and it does not include an extension for these waivers. So as of now, they're set to expire in June 30th. And it's been nice to have been able to operate a program without contributions from the general fund. Obviously, with the exception of COVID funds that were used to help with staffing and extra hours. But if these waivers aren't extended and supply chain issues remain and costs continue to increase, then next year we most likely will not have a surplus for our department. With all that said, there's still time. So Congress is still being urged to give the USDA final waiver authority before that bill passes. So we'll see what happens when that time comes.
And just to clarify, that's on the federal level, correct? The USDA. That would come from
Correct.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. You think, would it be possible if we sent a letter of support to our congressman and to Washington to extend those waivers? Maybe we can put that as a future agenda item.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Chief Business Officer, Ms. Rosa Zamilio.
Good evening. This time, I just want to thank the cabinet level for really supporting me on putting together the budget. I'm looking at Becky. She was working with me on vacancies. And also Chuck for helping me putting some numbers together for his fund, and Victor as well. Donna on the daily basis. We're next to each other. Summer as well. Melanie. Just everyone, thank you, Melissa, for overseeing the whole picture with me and going over the budget. And of course, my team for the support. Is really a team effort and collaboration. And I'm just very thankful for everyone that helped me to meet this deadline. So thank you. And I have more to talk about on the second interim on my next item. So I'll save that for later.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before? Okay, moving on to Director of Parent and Family and Community Engagement, Dr. Summer Prather Smith.
Hello, everybody. Just a couple of items. I want to start off with saying a huge thank you to Mr. Jorge Hasso, the former principal of Santa Rita, for coming in several weekends and several afternoons to put together our 14 bikes that we will be raffling as part of our support for Ciclovia, which will be happening in a couple of weekends. So thank you to Mr. Hasso for volunteering that time. I know we're going to have 14 very happy kiddos. Along with that, we've been able to partner with Salina City Elementary, and we are going to be taking 15 students to an event that's being held at Pebble Beach. These are going to be 1st through 3rd grade students. When the students arrive there, they're going to be surprised, hopefully they're not watching, by getting a new bicycle as well. So we'll be able to give bikes to another 15 students, and that's happening the Wednesday before Ciclovia. So we're excited to partner with Salina City and taking our students to that event as well. We were able to meet with our first handbook subcommittee to look at each of our site handbooks and work on developing a district handbook that incorporates each of those sites and offers an opportunity for the site handbooks to be included in those. It was a great meeting and lots of valuable input happened. Everybody's really excited at having some uniformity across that handbook. So once that's complete, we'll be sharing that with you as well. And last, our behavior task force. Tomorrow we'll be participating in place of our regular behavior task force meeting in a professional development being offered by Monterey County Office of Ed called Dismantling the School to Prison Pipeline. And it's being presented by Tia Martinez, who's world renowned for her work in dismantling the school to prison pipeline. So our behavior task force members will join that virtual meeting tomorrow from 3 to 5. Thank you.
Can you send that link to us as well? I'd be curious to see if I have a little bit of time to listen in on that presentation.
Yes.
Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, thank you. Moving on to Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Donna Coney.
Yes, good evening. Our Mill Elementary report card window for second trimester opened February 7th to allow teachers to begin entering comments. This trimester closed on the 23rd. This school year's assessment reporting calendar had teachers complete report cards for principals to review on March 4th to allow additional time. We have reopened Aries through the rest of this week, as report cards will be going home on Friday the 11th. Our FEB program that provides the one-to-one tutoring has launched smoothly over the last, just getting larger and larger over the last month for our 3rd and 8th graders. As of last week, we had 659 students scheduled for tutoring with the FEB program, and I already know it's up probably another 100 to be getting scheduled this week at least. It's great to see this number growing every week and the constant communication with the FEB program and us. We'll have more updates as we go along throughout the next, this year and next year. Last week, we had our curriculum council meeting. I want to thank Ms. Sarah Turner for joining us. During that meeting, we split into 2 groups. Middle school continued their rich discussions around data and PLCs, and the elementary schools started their discussions of rebuilding our standards-based report cards. And we have started our summer school academy planning phase, actually the meeting we had today. And in the coming weeks, we will be recruiting teachers. So teachers out there, we're hoping to build a summer academy similar to last year's, providing a rich variety of offerings for students. April 18th will be our professional development day. This is just about structured now. This will be held virtually, similar to the one we had in October, with 1.5-hour sessions instead of the 2-hour sessions, reducing some of that screen time of 2-hour sessions as requested from the feedback. And I want to thank our TOSAs, our paras and teachers at the sites, and our administrators for all of their support with LPAC. We're winding down. We've got a couple sites completed and a couple still lingering, and one where paras are going back and forth to other sites to support finishing up these sites. So we're hoping to have 100% of LPAC testing completed before spring break. Knock on wood, we have that finished. And thank you. Any questions?
I just want to say it's great news that they're taking advantage of that tutoring program, especially the numbers are going. So that's awesome. That's being utilized, and hopefully that shows improvements in the students. Questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I'm excited about the tutoring as well. I got a phone call the other day from the high school district, and they are doing the same program that we are, and they were able to open it to all students. So I know we at the last meeting kind of see how we are as far as how much we've spent, and you know if it's an opportunity to open up to more students. So I don't know, maybe at the next meeting we can know what, you know, how we're doing with our funding and how much participation and what wiggle room we have to open that up to more.
Oh, it's
students.
absolutely opened up to all 3rd through 8th graders. And we just, for scheduling purpose with the FED, where they actually have regular scheduled students, is regular 659. But absolutely all students can participate. And then we also have teachers and sites or TOSAs or administrators creating specific lists that they really want those parents or to get those calls specifically. So we're lining that out, but it is open up to all students. And then also we're reaching out for specific lists, like for example, the EL program list, or from the needs assessment from the iReady benchmark, those kids that really need those rich supports. But any student grades 3 through 8 absolutely can take advantage of this. But we're doing kind of both, where sites are sending out their rosters too, of which ones they really want to deep target.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. I misunderstood. I thought we were only doing that targeted, not open. Okay, thank you, Donna, for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
So it's just to piggyback on that. So it does get sounded to all teachers, hey, we have this program, but then there's that targeted list that the school districts are sending out then.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resource, Ms. Becky Moore.
Thank you. So as Juana mentioned, today I had a productive meeting with CSCA, and we have future meetings scheduled. Melissa and I also met on Monday with SRTA, with the site reps, as well as the president and vice president. And one of the conversations that we did have was in response to the concerns about the report card window, but we were able to extend that this week, as Donna reported. The mask lift is effective on Monday, technically Saturday, but we don't have Saturday school. And so the new CDPH K-12 guidelines, or the updates to those, came out today. We were able to share those with all staff. People were eagerly waiting for those. And I was also able to connect with Nurse Elizabeth so that we can make sure our exposure protocols and symptom protocols, particularly for students, are updated to reflect those. And so she is working on that, and we will have those out as soon as they are ready. Finally, we have been really busy focusing on getting as many interviews scheduled as possible. And it's been successful in some areas and unfortunately disappointing in others. An example of that is our special ed director hosted special education paraprofessional interviews last week. We had 8 candidates confirmed, and unfortunately only 1 showed up. So we were able to hire that person, thankfully very highly qualified, and accepting a position. But it's definitely a struggle I know that everyone is feeling right now. And I wanted to share that because I understand at our school sites that we're feeling those vacancies. They're impacting everybody at a time when people are especially tired. But we really are doing our best to continue to promote, continue to spread word of mouth, which is usually our best advertisement, and do our best to get those positions filled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the update. And the mask updates, I mean, people are kind of in the aware in the public that, just to clarify, that they're still optional. So even though it's lifted, you know, students or parents or staff who feels comfortable still wearing a mask, you know, that's also super important that people feel secure with their choice. Any questions or comments from the board?
I did have one question, Becky. Just because I was talking to Summer this weekend and I was trying to wrangle Mr. Hasso to come back We said definitely not. Incidentally, he was my third grade teacher, so I think he did a great job. And when I was in middle school, he was the principal over at Santa Rita. But what do you think, or how much of an impact do you think the earning cap is, for the retirement? Does that affect teachers coming back to work or principals?
From the people that we have spoken with this year, a lot of people would probably work more if it was not going to jeopardize their retirement. So it definitely does impact the amount of time that they're able to provide. Of those that we spoke with, I think there were only about 2 who really were trying to balance time off versus the ones who were very willing to jump in and help as much as they could.
Yeah, I thought to myself, and I'm not an expert in the retirement system at all, but I just thought to myself, if the school district, if our board was to have a discussion to maybe possibly support sending a letter to the retirement board, or I'm not sure what they call it, saying, hey, maybe you should consider a temporary year or 2-year raising of those limits, considering the need for educators. So I don't know. I guess it could be a discussion for another board meeting, but I don't know. I don't know what you think, Melissa or Becky.
I definitely need the impact of it. I mean, we are so grateful for those retirees who step back into leadership roles, classroom roles. And it's a struggle for them too, because and working with them, making sure that we're managing their time with them, and having to really keep track of it so that we're not inadvertently creating a troubling situation for them. And like Becky said, the majority of them would have kept going beyond their cap if they could have, or wish they could have, and things like that. So I would support such a letter if the board were interested in doing
Yeah, I
that.
would support that as well. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I absolutely would support it. And I think it certainly helped. People always have family issues and, people going on medical leave and, just to be able to get somebody to be able to take that role and not have to worry that they're, having to count their days would be great.
Yeah, maybe we could agendize that.
Okay.
Agendize that, and then Sarah, like I said, Sarah's our representative on the Monterey County School Board. Maybe we can build support that way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the board and the superintendent. We'll start off with Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Well, I'm just excited about our facilities committee, and we're a little bit worried about the cost of all the needs of the district, but optimistic, and I'm glad that we're doing all the outreach, including our stakeholders, and what really needs to be done. I know that there's a lot of wants. I have a lot of wants for our district, but I also understand the needs and the urgency, especially at sites like La Jolla. But I just want to thank Victor and then I forget the 2 gentlemen. I call it the team.
Don Berry.
Is it Don and Barry?
Berry, yeah.
For their work, creating that master plan and needs assessment. Thank you.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Thank you. Yes, I was able to attend curriculum council and I really appreciated everybody's time there and kindness to me as the weird person that was showing up at their meeting. And, we've obviously as a board been busy here. We were here Saturday, we're gonna be here today, we're gonna be here tomorrow. So just to people, please keep sending in your information. Jacob, board president, and I also went to the Salina City Council meeting yesterday and talked during public comment, trying to move forward with plans for new housing and new schools. So hopefully that conversation will bear fruit, but we're working on all ends over here.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I attended the board retreat and we got the chance to walk through the GB kitchen. I saw Chuck pretty excited about that. It's coming along. So I'm sure can't wait to see that finished and kind of see helping it serve our students and just better our district overall. As our Vice President Sarah Turner, also myself, we attended the city council meeting to speak on behalf and advocate for our district. Just letting them know that housing is important, but so is building good quality schools for our students and stuff. So just the public staff, just keep an ear to the ground as more stuff information comes out. We're gonna need your support in different capacities as we move forward with that West area development. And now Miss Melissa Alderman, Superintendent Alderman.
Just to remind everyone, MCOE is going to be here tomorrow night to have their public hearing regarding our trustee area maps. So this is the final step before that map would go to the Monterey County Elections Board, designating our trustee areas. And so it'll be about 6 p.m. here, and they're coming to hold their public hearing, but it has to be in our district boundaries. And apparently we got the gold star for being one of the first districts to have everything done and ready to go. So we're going to be the first public hearing, and hopefully we do it well. So if you're looking for something to do tomorrow evening, you're welcome to come for that. And but just to let you know, that's kind of our final step in that process. And then we'll have trustee areas designated. Want to thank the board for coming on a Saturday, giving up their time. Want to thank our IT support, Sam, for being here to make sure everything was running smoothly on a Saturday. It was great walking through the kitchen. If you weren't able to watch the live stream of that, it's recorded. And we do go into a little bit of detail about some things with the WASP area development plan and kind of where we're at on that. And we talked about the facilities overall plan that Victor's working on with Don and Mark from Sycamore Finney. And while Mr. Sandoval mentioned the overall cost of that does give you a sticker shock, you have to know that includes things from like emergency needs all the way to like beautification. And then the goal of the facilities committee is to recommend priorities to our board to adopt in our 5-year facilities plan. So you have the needs, the desperate needs, the wants, and then that would be really nice. And so we do our priorities, right? And so that's kind of coming up in our next facilities. And then Donna has her subcommittee for our middle school changing rooms and the impacts that will have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comment regarding non-agenda items?
We do, and I have those open.
Okay, thank you.
So we have 4 at this time. The first one is from Savannah Lindo. She says, hello, I am a first-year teacher at New Republic. I was one of the teachers who did complete my report cards on time, but I had to stay late in order to complete them on time. Assessing students, grading assessments, inputting the trimester scores, and giving thoughtful comments takes a lot of time. I, along with most of the teachers, did not have any paraprofessionals help for the month of February. This made giving assessments extremely hard. It would be great if we had early dismissal to complete report cards and paraprofessional support during this time so we can pull students for assessments. Thanks, Savannah Lindo. The next one is from Margie Kirchen. Dear board members, I would like to submit a public comment regarding the report card window. Over the weekend on Saturday afternoon, I set aside some time to input grades on my students' report cards. When I logged into Aries, I discovered that the report card window must have closed. I then spent my time trying to contact other teachers to find out if it was only closed to me or to everyone else as well. If it had been closed to everyone, I thought certainly it had been in error. Of course, I learned that the window had been closed to everyone, but to my amazement, it had been closed intentionally. Apparently, since the window had been opened since February 7th, the district felt the teachers had had enough time to input grades and write comments. This is perplexing to me. The trimester ended on February 23rd, so we were all still assessing students through that date. Then, papers had to be graded and one-on-one assessments had to be compiled into grades. The report cards weren't due to my principal until today, March 9th, so it makes no sense that they were closed before that date. I was grateful to learn that the window would be reopened, but puzzled that it would only be reopened through Monday, March 7th. What if we need to make changes after the report cards are reviewed by our principal? What if we need to make changes after our own review? Also, I understand that the district decided to close the window because they could see that most of the teachers had completed their report cards. Shouldn't they have noted instead that some of the teachers had not completed their report cards and therefore allowed time for those teachers to finish? The alternative is that the report cards wouldn't go home. Again, I'm perplexed. I love our district and in recent years have felt valued and supported. I don't believe closing the window before the report cards are due is supportive, though. We already use our own time to write them since there is no contracted time to write them. Why not just make it a little easier? Sincerely, Margie Kirchen, first grade teacher at La Jolla. The next one is from Lori Mandan, to whom it may concern. Regarding the report card window, I believe strongly that the window should be open until we print the report cards to be sent home. Let's use this trimester too as an example. The window for the report cards opened on February 7th, but the trimester did not end for 2 more weeks of instruction and assessments. While I understand that we have in your minds ample time to correct, score with rubrics, and line them up to our standards-based report cards, we are doing most of these things outside of contracted hours. Heaven forbid there is a family emergency, or someone was sick or injured. This becomes a very stressful time for a teacher. It is never my intention to be a last-minute person, but life outside of the classroom does sometimes happen. Closing the window adds an additional amount of stress and frustration to the teachers, administrators, and support staff. Thank you for considering my point of view. Blessings, Lori. Lori Mandan, grade 1 teacher, New Republic. And the last one is from Kate Dixon Clark. Hello, it would be super helpful to have the report cards open over 2 weekends. I do them at home on my own time as there is not much time during the workday to finish them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the public comments that were submitted. Is there any public comments regarding agenda items?
No.
Okay, moving on to 8.1, approval of annual renewal of Central Coast Co-op agreement for school year 22 to 23.
As our department's items, so it's just a renewal. This is a co-op that we're in with 12 to 15 other districts in our surrounding counties. Based on how many bids we are involved in, and each year we're involved in all 5, which is a cost of $250.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel, and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Item 8.2, consider approval of the school second interim report for 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, so I have the second interim budget report, and as you already know, we do this every year. And what I'm gonna be focusing this time is reviewing the difference in the budget between the last budget, which was in December, the first interim, and the difference to now, the second interim report. So we can go ahead and go to the first slide. Just the highlights for this report, it's pretty much similar to what we were dealing with in December. We still have, the health problem, which is COVID-19, which is impacting our programs. We're still getting through the shifting of funding, the one-time funds, the restricted dollars. We just got 2 new grants in the middle of the year, which back in the days before COVID-19, we usually would get it at the beginning of the year. It's still kind of crazy on how we get funded and still trying to manage all these one-time funds as well. Inflation is a problem as well. As you know, the costs keep going up. So what we had planned at the beginning of the year on expenditures, slowly, sometimes we have to increase because prices are going up as well. You heard already, labor shortage. It's really hard to hire people. Just an example, I still have my budget technician open since December. we haven't had found somebody to fill in that position. Supply chain problems as well. Items are getting delayed, or copy printers still not here, or transportation vans still not here. We have to go out there and rent vans to be able to provide services for students. So we're still dealing with those issues. Again, now we're dealing with the new mask updates due to COVID. Employees got new COVID-19 hours, so that creates more work for HR department, having to backdate all the way to January, more work to our payroll department. It's still going on. It's still a lot of things coming up. It's still new requirements since the last report. So we can go ahead and go to the next one. This is a projection. This is a graph I wanted to show. This is our LCFF revenue. As you know now, because of the one-time funds, or LCFF, it's about 70% of our district revenue. And I really wanted to show this graph because now with the January budget proposal that we had, the state came out and said, okay, instead of a 2.4 COLA for the next year, we're going to give you a 5%. And what it seems like, if you're not really deeply involved in the budget, it seems like the districts are getting more funding because it's from a 2.4 to a 5%. But when you really put the numbers, and we realize that California is going through a really hard situation on all over decline enrollment, right? When you put those numbers together, even though we're getting that 5% COLA, we're still losing $2.8 million. So even though it looks like, yes, it would be nice if we get the same funding as we're getting right now, but in reality, they're having different proposals at this time. We're using the current law for next year. And as you know, it's either we get funded on current year, prior year. They're proposing to get funded on the districts on the average of the last 3 years. Even if they adopt that option in July, we're still going to be receiving less funding than this year. So it's just really important that we highlight that even though it seems like it's more, in reality, we're losing $2.8 million from our unrestricted funds, which is where we pay our teachers or classified employees. Everything else is one time. They tell us when to spend it, how to spend it, and timelines. It's really specific, and it's not ongoing funding. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. So this is, again, just a summary of the difference between the first interim and the second interim. On the first line, the LCFF funding came in a little bit higher. We have our final enrollment as of January. We submitted that to the state. So we are using the last numbers. We got 10 more students overall, and we also got about 6 students on that qualify for LCAP funding. So that's why the revenue came in a little bit higher. In federal revenue, I'm gonna go ahead and take off the mask. I feel like I can't breathe. Sorry about that. Federal revenue, this is pretty much for our ESER 2 and ESER 3 funds. As you know, those funds are based on reimbursement. So we did increase our revenue. If you see at the bottom on our 5,000s, we also increase our expenses. So since we're spending more, we know that we're gonna get more money back because again, we're getting reimbursed for that money. The other state revenue, it's those grants that we receive from MCOE. It comes through the state. It's for specifically for special ed. But as you can see, that money is not even enough. On the 7,000s, that 477,000, that's an increase from our bill back. That's money that we transfer to Monterey County Office of Education for special ed costs for the students that they serve that we're not able to serve here. So the enrollment increase in December, we were at 17. Right now we're at 26. So as you can see, special ed costs just keeps increasing. And yes, they're giving us maybe $150,000 for the 2 grants on special ed, but look at our bill back, it's 477,000. So it's still not enough. We do have some increases on certificated salaries. This is due to PD on the new grant that we received, the block grant. So we budgeted some extra hourly. You are going to see the decrease on classified benefits because we uploaded vacancies. I work with our HR department very closely with Becky to make sure that we had the right numbers. And we do this every report. So it just creates a savings when you don't have that people, right? You don't pay them. And now when we upload all the vacancies again, it's creating a savings because now the people that we hire as of today, they're getting paid as of, for example, if they got hired in January, it's only budgeting from January through the end of the school year. So that's why you see some savings. Now, on the capital outlay, we have the school bus. It was board approved recently, so that's the 187,000. And then at the very bottom on transfers out, that's $1.5 million that we're budgeting to support or fund 35. That's the fund that it's paying for the Gavilan View kitchen project, and that is based on the last contract that was board approved in December, which was $1.8 million. So as we move forward with the project and as we have, like I said, prices keep going up, but we're trying to stay up to date and updating this. This is just an estimated amount. Once I come back with the next budget report, it might look a little bit different, depend on how much we have advanced on that project. We can go ahead and move to the second slide. So overall, this is the current year, 2 years out. As you can see, we are projecting a deficit for this year, mainly because we're taking that $1.5 million to support or fund 35 for the Gavilan kitchen renovation. Now, just know that because we have about $1 million on vacancies as of today, once we close the books or we get to the next budget, that number can really flip to a positive, maybe $500,000. So let's just keep in mind. Again, if we have other savings, hopefully it might be a surplus. Yes.
I had a question. So, and that's also considering we're not fully staffed, because if we were fully staffed, then that expense, which
yes,
we want to be fully staffed,
yes,
shortages of positions, and it would kind of be.
That's correct. Yes.
And Rosa, I had a question. The 1.5 that we've allocated for the kitchen, and I understand that's not going to get it done, that there's going to be more money. Is that part of the funds that'll be available potentially for reimbursement from the state once we submit what we've done, or are we just absorbing that whole cost?
So this is part of the general fund, and I still don't know if we're going to qualify for reimbursement for that. I would have to look and talk to Victor about it, because at the beginning we did have some funding. It was $1.5 million that we estimated before COVID when prices were really low. And as we move forward, like I said, it's just been increasing. So we have to support it as of now from the general fund. So that's a really good question. We can look into see if we qualify for a reimbursement on the funding.
Yeah, and my understanding, one of the reasons that we did this now is that we had reimbursement that we'd gotten from when we put in the new buildings at John Gutierrez. So we weren't, it's general fund, but it was money that's come through construction.
That's right.
Before.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That's the money that we were planning on getting, and unfortunately, because prices went up, we run out of money, and now we have to make a contribution.
Yeah, well, it had to be done. So, and if we'd waited, it would have been even more expensive. So better now.
So that's pretty much it. On the next 2 years out, really the main reason why we're deficit spending is mainly because our funding is decreasing. Just on the second year is about $8 million. So it's really, really difficult to maintain the budget. We're also, if you can see on the second year, even the expenditures, we're reducing all of those expenditures from the one-time funds. But even like that, we still on the deficit. And the main reason for that is because our funding is coming lower. We're going to keep on monitoring and making sure that we make the reductions that we can to have a more balanced budget.
I had a question on that. Do we also sometimes get funds, like one-time funds that are spread out over a couple of years?
Yes.
So like 1 year looks like we have a big surplus, and the next 2 years, because we're at the time that we're spending the money, that's.
Yes. So we do have those grants, and I did provide like a spreadsheet with the grants per year. So just to get an idea, some of them are based on reimbursement. So we have to book a revenue and then our expenditures to be matched. So there's not money at the end, but there are some of them that you get the money, and if you don't spend it, it's at the bottom. So if we spend it next year, it's going to look like we're on the red, but in reality, we're just spending the money from the bottom. I hope that makes sense.
No, and also for the public to know as well, as far as understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so you know, the federal fiscal year is slightly different too. So you end up with overlap from your federal funds that it's accounted for at different times.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. That's right. So this is just a copy snapshot of the multi-year projection, and this is pretty much what the county and the state wants to see. Is the district able to meet the minimum reserves, which for the current year and 2 years out, as you know, we do have the board policy of the 17%. So we are in compliance. We're still meeting the minimum percent. So we are financial stable as of now because we are still having those reserves in place.
And I think, sorry, really quick. I know one thing on reserves, I know the state requires a minimum, but I think it's always good to have extra because sometimes we have ideas for certain projects that we want to do in the future, whether it's capital improvements.
Mhm.
And so that allows us the flexibility to do those. Well,
Yes. And in the future, we can do just like we did the board policy with the 17% reserves, we can do another one where we can reserve another percentage or a specific amount for a specific project. And that's what the state want us to do. Right now, we have assigned most of the ending fund balance. I'll go over it, but the state is saying it's better if you do those board policies and just reserve those funds for those specific reasons. So I think all the districts are moving towards that.
yeah, 'cause I think part of the board's, the superintendent's plan is just not to think about every year, but also plan ahead of what's coming up that we have to kind of plan for in the future with those.
Right. Yes. So this is pretty much what we're talking about. This is the assigned ending fund balance. So as of now, we do have our reserves, and it's pretty much similar to what the first interim, we put money aside for increases on special ed, for future OPEB payments. We have our LCAP that we were not able to spend on the last 2 years because of COVID. So we have a reserve that money is specifically for those students. Increases on spurs and other operating expenditures. Like I said, prices just keeps going up, so we need to reserve some money for that. So we can go ahead and move to the next one. This is the Fund OA. This is our fundraising for all of our school sites. Last time you heard La Jolla was here giving a presentation that they did a fundraiser. So as you can see now, compared to the first interim, it's way more. It's about $82,000 more because now with the restrictions of COVID, they're doing more activities and they're getting more funds. We can go ahead and move to the next one. Or Child Development Fund. I did put a reduction here because this year for this grant is also based on reimbursement. There was an audit adjustment. What happened is that last year we ordered some supplies, they got delayed and we got it in July instead of June. And if we received the items in July, even though we ordered them back then and they were delayed, they have to get paid for the new year. So what we did, it was a reduction in funds because since we got reimbursed last year, we might have to return that funds to the state. Again, this is the preschool. It's with low enrollment still. So at the end of the year, if we don't get all the students, we might have to return some of the money back to the state. So we're going to keep on monitoring this fund as well. Our cafeteria fund, overall, we're still on a surplus. Participation was low due to COVID, but right now it's picking up, so we got more revenue. And the good news is that like Chuck said, we don't have a contribution from the general fund, which is usually the normal case for all the districts. And I'm just so glad that we're still looking as of today for a surplus. So I'm really happy with that. We can go ahead and move to the next one. This is our Fund 35, the one that I was talking about for the Gavilan View kitchen project. The main revision there is at the bottom. As you can see, that's the $1.5 million. This is to be able to pay all of the projects that have been approved since December to March. So you can see that interfund transfer of $1.5 million. And we're gonna keep updating as we move forward as well. No changes on the capital outlay. This is where we were paying La Jolla portable. So far we're still up to date on the budget and no changes on that. So we can go move forward. These are the forms. The Fund 25 and the Fund 14, there was no changes at all. That's why I didn't include them in the slides. They pretty much stay the same as the first interim report. We have the forms, as you can see, it has a description, or TRC is completely clean, which means that all the budget is balanced and accurate. So I'm open for any questions you might have now.
Any questions from the board?
It's not a question, but it's more a comment for the public, just to let them know, as Jacob mentioned, that we did walk the Gavilan View kitchen project on Saturday and went into it in detail. So grateful to all the work from the business office side in terms of funding it and the maintenance side in terms of getting it done, and even the architect coming down and talking to us about the realities of construction right now. So I'm grateful for all the expertise. And Rosa, thank you. I feel like I've been telling you that you're in terribly challenging times for the past 2 years, but we're still there. And I'm grateful every day for all the work from your office, because it's craziness.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate everything as well from your team. You always do a great presentation. It's easy to understand, especially for the public.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the second interim report for 2021-2022 school year?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, item 8.3, speaking of the kitchen, approval change order number 1 for the Gavilan View Middle School project.
Well, thank you. This is an item from the facilities department, and during construction, of course, like Rosa said, we did pay a little bit more for this project, even though we were budgeted for 1.5, but with the cost increases, as you can see, it's $1,877,000. So with that, every project that we have approved, there's always a contingency of 10%, and that's for modifications or remediation of what we're doing now for the kitchen. And so the change order number 1 is for $103,000, and that's for major modifications that we did to existing spaces and some remediation that we had to do also. So again, I just want to let you know that we're at 5.5% of the 10% that's allowable by contract. So with that, I would hopefully have you guys approve this. If you have any questions, I'm open to any.
Thank you for walking us through again and kind of going into detail for everything. And also, I think I realized after walking through that space how much our different departments sometimes make do with what they have. So I'm sure they'll be appreciative once this is done.
And just to comment, when it's all done, and I know probably the stoves are going to be last, if we had like an open house for the public so that they could come and and see what an incredibly expensive nice kitchen looks like.
Yeah, I think if when we do have that open house, I think there's going to be a lot of people shocked, especially because they maybe they grew up in that gym or have played forever in there. So I remember when they tore down Santa Rita, I think a piece of my heart was missing to see that building go. So I think people will be a little shocked, but it's going to be something good for our district. So I'm excited. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. I was also sad when they tore down Santa Rita. 9.1, approval of 7-hour paraprofessional special education for John Gutierrez Middle School.
Thank you. As our special education needs are ever changing, they're very dynamic. There is a need that has been identified for an additional special education paraprofessional at JGMS, and that would be a 7-hour position that's needed. And so we are requesting approval for that.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. 9.2, approval of sunshine letter from SRTA to open 2022-2023 negotiations with the district.
Thank you. Our contract, our collective bargaining agreement with SRTA expires June 30th of this year. And so at our last board meeting, the lead negotiator, Jamie Gondara, did read the sunshine letter. And so this is that letter for your official approval.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Aye, second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, 9.3, approval of sunshine letter from the district to open 2022-2023 negotiations with SRTA.
Thank you. The district also has an interest in negotiating some specific articles in the contract. So we are intending to open negotiations with the following articles in mind. Article 4, workday. Article 7, compensation. and Article 8, health and welfare benefits. And so we're presenting this letter. It has been shared already with lead negotiator Gondara, and it is here for your approval.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Approve 10.1 approval of contract for behavior technician.
Thank you. This is really an update of a previously adopted contract because the specific employee who was associated with that is no longer available, and so it is replacing that contracted employee with another registered behavior technician.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Our next 14.1, our next regular board meeting will be held March 23rd, 2022. Is there any suggested future board items besides the ones mentioned earlier?
As I mentioned, just when we get there, a preview of summer program and what's gonna happen at that point, and not a future board item, but just information to us about clarification with the teachers about spring report card windows, and maybe next fall, so that everybody's on the same page about what's going on. I too go in on Saturdays to do mine, so I feel your pain.
Yeah, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 7:01?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Patel and Ms. Ariano are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you, everybody.